Hello and welcome. My name is William Carver and I'm delighted to be once again hosting an episode of SCC Simplify. Today we're going to be talking about all things Agentic AI in the context of customer experience, which I think is quite a hot topic right now in the market as a whole. So I'm delighted to be joined by John and H. John, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, Will. I'm John Faria. I'm the head of product for digital workplace at SCC.
Yeah, hi Will. I'm Harkirat Degun, so I'm CTO at Resonate. Resonate is an SCC company, part of the Rigby Group, and we specialize in unified communications and customer experience.
Cool. Perfect. Okay, so you're going to be bob on with this topic. Excellent. Can we address the elephant in the room? What on earth is Agentic AI when it's at home?
Yeah, so if you look at traditional sort of chatbots that you find on a website, they typically are quite containerized in the sense that you ask it a question, there's a predefined response that's usually there. So you can ask it, well, what's the opening hours?
Mm-hmm.
Ask it anything outside of that, it will struggle. And I think we've all been in that frustrating situation probably in the last couple of years. Agentic AI works quite differently in that it can understand the intent, it can understand the context in which you're asking,
Mm-hmm.
and then it can decide and take action and do what's best in that situation. And if that even means escalating to a human, that's also something that it can do.
Yeah, and it can take a form of a chatbot in some degree, in that, you know, the interface can be a chat interface, but the difference is you can use natural language, you can just have a conversation, you can say hi and then ask it something and it will figure out what it is you're trying to achieve and go off and try and help you out. But it can also be like, there are different ways of accessing it. It could be a voice agent. So you could actually talk to it on the phone and it would talk to you again in natural language. So it can be chat, but it might not be.
So the difference really between Agentic AI and a chatbot is that intelligent layer that sits behind it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So and Agentic AI as a topic area is obviously quite big, right? Because it's the thing which is out there right now. And so it's agent-based AI tooling.
Yeah.
When you start to get into that customer experience world, is there a risk with this that you wind up putting a barrier between you and customers?
Yeah, I think it can be seen as a barrier, but if you look at what's happening in that customer experience world, you've got companies like Uber and Netflix, you know, there's that always on type of mentality.
Right.
You've got access to do whatever you need at any given time. And that is now replicating into the more traditional brands. And there's an expectation that you want to have that experience no matter who you talk to.
Sure.
And that's the thing that's really driving the need for something like Agentic AI, because you take those sort of manual tasks that are better suited to something like Agentic, think password resets or simple information lookups, you know, it then enables you to allow the agents to spend time on more complex sort of tasks.
Yeah, and then at the same time, if you think about like where we are from an economic point of view, companies, you know, we've got sort of slow economic growth globally, and we've all seen in the last few years that the companies that we interact with, the services and retail companies, their way of doing customer experience is often a legacy, sort of old school, if you like, chatbot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all know how frustrating that experience is, or can be, that kind of infinite loop you get into when you're trying to get some help. You can't find a phone number, you can't speak to a human, so you're kind of left with this chatbot that's usually pretty useless. And then that's really frustrating for customers. And we've seen, there are a lot of stats out there to show this, that customer satisfaction over the last few years across kind of services and retail has really taken a dip.
Is it?
Yeah, 100%. So actually being able to help people, help customers in a customer experience scenario with Agentic AI means that you're kind of offloading and providing effectively a better service to those customers.
I mean, if you're thinking about the complexity that's involved in handling customer interactions, clearly there's a lot more complexity in there. So is Agentic AI something which can deal with multi-channels as well? Is that part of the plan?
Yeah, exactly. And the way that it can be really effective is if you have the same agentic system working across every channel. That way the customer gets a very consistent experience, no matter if you're picking the conversation up over the phone, if they're contacting you via the chatbot on the website, if it's WhatsApp, if you're emailing them, that agentic system will have access to all the information that it needs to respond effectively or to action, whatever you may have asked it.
And that could be 24/7. It could be multilingual. So you know, you might want to ask the question in Spanish, and it'll answer you in Spanish. So there are other sort of facets that people don't necessarily think about. But if your customer experience team aren't around at the weekend, but customers are still expecting to get answered, then it can fill in those times, weekends, overnight, that kind of thing. It's always available and it's fast.
Yeah, and you think some of the use cases are pretty simple. I mean, we just come off the Easter break, and I messaged the council on the Instagram site saying, when are the bins being collected? They didn't actually get back to me until Tuesday.
Right. By which point?
It's too late by then.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a very simple use case that you can look at and think, actually, agentic would have fit perfectly there.
Yeah. That knowledge serving is it's almost like the low hanging fruit. You talked about getting the question on opening hours, but like you said, you could word the question in any number of different ways, and to get to get information back fast 24/7 is like the obvious use case there, because a lot of people, when they contact customer services or the council or even a IT service desk, for example, they just are looking for information or help or something like that. And that's a really quick use case, which is I can find out what it is you really need to know. I can analyze all the knowledge I've got access to as an agentic AI, and I can give you that information really fast.
Yeah, and I suppose, I guess with things like this, sometimes you can potentially come up with use cases which are much too complicated, but simple things are just as useful. But that data is perhaps not in the same place as the data around council tax bills, for example, in that, just being able to bring together those different data sources through a single front end, right?
That's right. And that's the thing about agentic AI. If you design it in the right way, you can cross those different kind of system boundaries. So you might have a query about, I don't know, a bill or something like that, and then your AI can kind of go and find out your account through the CRM. It can look at the bill in your ERP system, and it can come back and go, here's a copy of your bill, I've got you what you wanted, and it kind of figures that out for itself.
So I mean, which all sounds great, and it sounds really cool, but why not just hire some more people rather than doing this?
Well, we all know that's not the reality of the way the world is going.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, I think the biggest challenge, I think I saw some stats that there's a 30 to 40% attrition rate with contact center staff. I mean, that in itself is a challenge. They can't hire people fast enough today as it is to handle those volumes. So this is a really good way to close the gap. You look at as you mentioned, some of those scenarios and use cases. Actually, by implementing this, you're going to reduce the pressure on the existing agents that you've got. Agent burnout is a massive challenge in the industry at the moment. This is going to help reduce cognitive load, help them focus on tasks that actually matter.
So effectively, they become an escalation point, rather than the first point. Yeah. Okay. I suppose if you're thinking about this, and we as SCC have a lot of different customers at different levels of maturity, from people that are doing this at scale to people that are just beginning to think about it. Are there any recent shining lights of examples of this being deployed, perhaps not with the Netflix and all those guys, but sort of more relatable for some people that might be listening to this?
Yeah, we've got examples of customers where they've implemented it for a number of different uses. So if you take the IT service desk as kind of quite a typical
one. Yeah.
If you think about the number of calls that IT service desk might get, it might get hundreds a day, but out of all of those, a lot of them will be the same thing. So you might get, 10 or 20% might be looking for information, but there might also be 10 or 20% or even more that are looking for something very simple like a password reset.
Sure. Yeah.
Or access to some software. Can I have, I don't know, Microsoft Teams or Copilot? I'd like that, please. Or I need access to someone's mailbox or something like that. Those kinds of things are very, very common, and we've got customers that have implemented Agentic AI just to do those sorts of tasks and offload them from the frontline service desk so they can do other more meaningful things.
tasks. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at some of the scenarios that John was talking about, I think it's quite important that when you also layer in some of those bits that we mentioned earlier about multilingual, if you're a global organization, having the capability to do that, set a preference language, bot answers in a preference language, really helps the adoption of that technology. And I think the second thing is around adoption, that we try to meet people where they are in the way that they do things. We're not trying to change the processes that exist today, and I think that's quite an important thing.
It's a really good point.
Example is password reset. You're locked out of your system, so you're not going to be able to access chat.
No.
You're going to have to pick up the phone. So if you haven't got that capability on that channel, you're kind of stuck. And I think that's an important thing that customers need to take into account.
I mean, it sounds like it's something which has a lot of use cases across a lot of organizations, but is also potentially quite scary to start down the journey of doing this. And I saw a Gartner stat the other day that said something like 85% of all AI projects fail in the first year. How do customers think about trying to avoid some of the pitfalls, or what are some of the common pitfalls that people hit?
There you mentioned the sort of, there is fear out there, and there is that kind of concern about, am I going to get replaced? Am I being commoditized? And this isn't necessarily really about that. It is around shifting from our workload from doing the repeatable stuff to doing the more meaningful stuff.
Yeah.
For us to be able to be humans and do the stuff that humans do well, use judgment, make decisions, be empathic, all of those things. So by freeing up the time to do that in a kind of a customer experience scenario, you're actually getting, first of all, the people doing the work are doing more meaningful, interesting work. They're not doing the repeatable stuff. They're doing the stuff that's more interesting. But the flip side is the customer's getting a better experience too, because when they actually need help that a human needs to help them with, they're more likely to get through to them quickly. They're less likely to be held in a queue, because that queue's taken up with all of those kind of more repeatable things, and those are all taken care of really quickly. So then you've got this situation where you actually get through to a real person, and they're ready to help you. So I think overcoming that fear and resistance is one of those things that you need to kind of think about, and trying to sort of reframe the conversation into a positive one around, this is actually going to give us more meaningful work. It's going to give our customers a better experience.
Yeah, for me personally, when I've spoken to the customers that we're working with, I often see like a journey gap. You've got the vendors that are working in this space that are presenting AI that's capable of automating and everything in that environment, which it does have the capability to do that. It's just where organizations actually are.
Yeah, sure.
Is not to take that step just yet. There's a lot of things that they need to do around data governance, actually identifying the use cases where they're going to get value from the technology that they need to do before they jump forward and start actually implementing and using.
So breaking this into sort of bite-sized chunks and thinking about what the dependencies are in the project is really key.
Exactly. It's the classic, walk before you run type situation. And if you do that, then there's certainly value to be had from it.
You've got to think about what outcome you really are looking for, or why you're doing it. Don't jump into it because everyone's talking about it.
Don't do it for the sake of it.
It is a buzzword. Everyone is talking about it. And so, every organization is going, oh, what are we doing with Agentic AI? We have to do something. But think about actually what business problems you're trying to solve, and then that will lead you to the right solution.
Because this isn't actually that new. I mean, I'm conscious Resonate's been doing work in this field for quite a long time, right? I mean, how long have you guys been playing with this as a technology set?
Well, if you look at traditional automation, we've been doing that for 5+ years. Right? The agentic capabilities have really developed over the last 18 to 24 months.
Right.
So yeah, for sure, it's not new, but I think, like as I mentioned before, it's the readiness of the organizations. They're still playing catch up, and that's where we can help. We can help organizations actually look at what they're trying to achieve and taking the steps to do that in a slow, and I won't say slow, but in a controlled way.
Yeah, sure. I mean, in a planned way, right?
In a planned way, yeah.
But it is. I mean, it might be only 18 months old, but that, if you think about it from an IT point of view, that is, and an adoption point of view, that is incredibly new. That's bleeding edge.
Yeah, sure.
We are in the IT world.
But it's no, I think
so for us, it's like, we've been doing this for a while. But for most people, most customers, this is super new. So it's like, and so thinking about how to actually adopt it is quite probably a daunting thing.
But you are, I mean, as the point you're making a minute ago, actually, I think you're starting from a place where we've been doing automation for quite a long time.
Yeah.
This is kind of the next level of automation as you start to apply the AI tooling to it.
Yeah.
So if you had to sort of stare into your crystal ball and think about what's coming next in terms of trends in this space, and I guess with Resonate being on this journey, what's not quite here but coming?
Yeah, I think it's what we see is or the gap is actually translating some of the data that you're getting from these agents into meaningful metrics and KPIs. And I think that's something that we've addressed as part of some of the solutions that we can offer. And I think that's really important is, take out the jargon. When you're looking at KPIs and metrics and cost and the impact that these solutions could have, customers won't understand tokens or all of that technical jargon that you get told. They want to know, how much is it costing me? How much is it saving me? What impact is it having on my customers? Is it having a positive experience on the staff that I've got working for me? And those are the important things, I think, that we need to be tracking.
And actually, all of those metrics you just talked about, particularly things like staff retention and KPIs and all that, those are not things that these are traditional measures, right? You're not trying to apply a different set of metrics to this. You're using good old fashioned budget and KPI, and you're just seeing that come through or not quite quickly, I assume.
Yeah, and I think the other important thing is that when you're choosing your use cases, it's very important not to get tied down into using the standard metrics all of the time.
Right, okay.
Think about what's important to you, because when we've been speaking to some of the local councils, they get tracked and measured on things like addressing vulnerable citizens.
Sure.
And all of the other things are not necessarily as important. That's their key metric, which may not be important to another organization. So you're going to have the general stuff, but you're also going to have these nuanced KPIs.
Quite specific for either industry or organization type.
Yeah, exactly.
And understanding that prioritization of what those KPIs are is really key.
Yeah.
There's clearly bits in here where a customer might look at, oh Christ, my data's not in the right order, and I don't have control over it. Should you get that sorted first before you begin, or is that something you do in parallel? Or
it's definitely good to get your data sorted out, because one of the low-hanging fruits is knowledge serving and getting information out to customers. Being able to do that really quickly and easily. So somebody just wants information about opening times, for example, or whatever it might be, information about the organization. That data has to be there and has to be in good shape so that you're actually providing accurate, up-to-date information. So for sure, get that sorted. That's relatively straightforward to do, I'd like to think. If it's sort of serving, the kind of content you would have on your website, then it's there and it's okay. That's probably already ready to go. But then going from there, you want to think about other common use cases, things that happen a lot in your organization that are relatively transactional. We talked about password resets, that kind of thing. Anything that happens a lot that you think can be offloaded, then start there.
Is there anything specific in a UC world that people should think about?
Yeah, or maybe just to touch on that point, I think what an effective way of actually getting to the point of knowing what to prioritize is like doing a day in the life of. We find that very useful. Actually go and spend time in those scenarios where you've got customers contacting, understanding the channels that they're using, understand the problems that they may be calling up about or contacting you about. And from that, you'll get a very good understanding about the sentiment of that they're kind of feeling, the typical challenges that they might face. And you can take that information and you can really use that to drive your starting step.
Is there anything? I mean, I'm just curious because I know, again, as I said a couple of times, Resonate's been doing automation for quite a long time. But is there anything that's just come out as a result of looking at agentic AI, which has sort of changed or maybe caught your eye that perhaps you hadn't seen before?
It's funny you say that, actually, because what you actually end up with is probably 80% of the automation that needs to happen is still just standard automation.
Yeah.
What the agentic is actually doing is that bit in the front. It's understanding what the customer's asking for and trying to understand the steps in what it needs to do to make that decision. Actually carrying out the actions is still sort of traditional automation, really. So that if you look at that password reset example, that's an automation task.
Right.
All we're using the AI for is to understand that Mr. Customer has asked us for a password reset.
Yeah. So you've been able to ingest, that is actually a password reset task, even though they've expressed themselves using
What's
different
nice,
language.
though, one of the recent examples that I've seen is around the voice experience. So, traditionally you call up somebody.
Voice PBX drove me absolutely mad.
You get like an IVR, you get a press 1 for sales, press 2 for customer services, and you've got to keep doing that. GP surgeries is a classic example, where you have to listen to long messages about, all the things you have to do before you get to say what it is you want. And half the time you end up back where you started.
Sure.
With agentic AI voice, somebody answers the phone and goes, "Hi, how can I help you?" And you just tell it what you want, and it then reasons and listens to what you've said and gets you what you need. So in the password reset scenario, it'll know that's exactly what it needs. It'll ask you who you are. It might ask you to validate your ID, might send you a text message or something to approve a PIN code or something, just to validate you are who you say you are, and then it will just do the work and it'll automate it, and it's done instantly without this press 1, press 2.
Sure.
So from a customer satisfaction point of view, it's a huge difference.
It's actually taking down some of those barriers rather than adding it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The impact on first call resolution is massive when it comes to that. And I think that's one of the key things that builds customer experience is how many things can you solve first time and how quickly can you solve it.
Yeah. And there's a cost implication to that too as well. If you can do more of that at the front, then you don't have to have 3,000 people sat in a call center trying to deal with all the different tasks at the back end, so that actually you're reducing the cost of serving those calls at the same time as improving the customer experience.
Yep.
I'm conscious a little bit of time, folks. So let's just ask the fun question, right? So are you building Skynet?
I wish I was building Skynet. Look, there's definitely value in having AI as part of your customer experience technology stack. I think what we're seeing is that you don't have to run and be where everybody else is, but there's an inevitable thing that you will need to be on.
There's momentum in this market, right?
Yeah. But hybrid, we anticipate a hybrid world.
Right.
Humans doing what humans do best, and AI doing what AI can help with, and offloading. And it's just that combo. So is it Skynet? No. Is it a Skynet human hybrid? Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. I'm reassured by that, particularly in this world. Okay. So thinking about very, practical steps, somebody wants to come and get engaged. How do they come and get engaged with us? How do they get in touch with Resonate?
Yeah. So they can just get in touch either directly through Resonate, through SCC as well. Contact your account managers. We're more than happy to help with any of the services that we've spoken about today.
Yeah, come and talk to us, and we can help with a number of things as well, because there is sometimes there's that cost barrier. There's a question about do I need a business case to do this, and
Sure.
what does that business case look like? And that's actually remarkably simple to do, because
But quite intimidating for some of the people that might be thinking about this. I've got
Yeah.
to sit down and write an internal business
Absolutely.
case. What do I put into it?
but we can really help with that, because there are a lot of very sort of standard industry standards or ways of going about this. And if you think about what we're really doing, is we're talking about what we call deflection, which is we're trying to offload some of that work to AI. And so the percentage or whatever that we're offloading off to AI is in effect reducing the cost of your delivery, and that's very quantifiable, as is the improvement in CSAT, and also your reduction in things like time to respond, time to answer. All of those things are easy to measure.
And as I say, like they're traditional measures, actually. when it comes
Absolutely.
right down.
So building your business case can be quite straightforward.
Right. Okay.
So we can help with that too.
Okay. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I haven't asked either of you?
No, I think yeah.
I have to check my notes.
No, good. All right, excellent. Well, look, thank you so much, both of you, for taking the time out. If people do want to get in touch, we'll have a link below this in the description, or you can just go onto SCC.com. There's a contact form on there where you can get in touch. But until next time, thank you very much.